Our happy hour oasis. We're happy you're hanging out with us. Hunter Baumgart along as well. We are happy to welcome the voice of the Badgers, our friend Matt Lepay joins us. Hello, Matt.
How we doing?
We're doing great. How are you enjoying this kind of mini bye that the Badgers have right now? A little downtime.
It was good. Yeah, I just got back from the cabin, just making sure the water's still running. The pipes haven't exploded up in lovely Vilas County, where it was a chilly 14 below this morning.
Oh, nice.
Very crisp. It was very crisp. So
that's crisp. Is that where you watched the Super Bowl up north?
I did. Got there Sunday night. Yes, I watched the route like everybody else. Stepped away during halftime because I'm too old for the halftime act and have no recollection of any of the commercials. But I enjoyed myself. It was a good time watching the Super Bowl.
You had said you had kind of it was no lose because either Leo or Zach was going to win, and Zach Bond gets the pick and just gets to be like the man of the hour. He'll never pay for a cheesesteak again, Matt.
Yeah, no, good for him. He is, I think, has won the lottery. You bet on yourself a 1-year contract. I would like to think that he is in line to get paid massive amounts of dollars.
What a story.
I would hope so.
I mean, when you watched him play in college, did you think to yourself, this guy's going to be a Super Bowl hero someday?
I thought he could be pretty good because he runs well. He's just a good all-around football player, like all-American good. But I mean, you never know for sure. Now, did I think he'd get a pick that would help blow the game open late in the second quarter of a Super Bowl against one of the best quarterbacks of a generation in Patrick Mahomes? But no, he's good. They've just had a run, guys, as I'm sure you know, of linebackers, either inside or outside, who have just excelled. You know, you think of obviously T.J. Watt and what he's done, and there are guys like Joe Schobert, T.J. Edwards, Jack Sanborn, either drafted or undrafted. And some of these guys I just listed were undrafted, but they become starters. They become guys who played on the biggest stages. So, you know, and Leo Chanel has 2 rings already, and now Zach has 1, and that's great for him.
So, as a broadcaster, you've done a Final Four. What is the holy grail for Matt Lepay to call?
The Final Four was pretty cool. The national championship game. I know it didn't end well for the Badgers, but it was the rare deal. It was the first time, I think, since the early 90s that I walked into an arena for a basketball game and knew it was the last one. Because now with conference tournaments, if you can make it, your season could extend. And it was, I think it was the first time since Steve Yoder's last game in 1992, when I knew they weren't going to make the NCAA tournament or the NIT, even pre-conference tournament era. That was one. That was probably it. The Van Gundy year, pretty sure, but they were maybe on the NIT bubble going into the last game. That was fun. A football national championship game would be awesome. But the 3 Final Fours for me, KB, that was special, and especially in 15 when they played for all of it.
That is pretty cool. When you watch a game like the Super Bowl, high fashion games like that, can you just turn off your broadcaster brain? Are you thinking along with what Kevin Burkhardt's doing? And everybody's watching Tom Brady because he makes so much money and he's so, he's Tom Brady. But those guys, you have the biggest audience in the world for this game, and the game sucks, and the second half is just a slog. And I thought they handled it pretty well. What did you think, and what's it like for you to watch games like that?
Yeah, it was good. I bounced back and forth. I actually had Kevin on. I had the Westwood One radio broadcast too, because like everybody I think around here, I'm a big fan of Kevin Harlan and his work. But yeah, 126 million, was that the total? That's what Fox is saying that tuned in for the game. It actually reminded me. I mean, we've had a run of great Super Bowls, overtimes, the Patriots' big comeback over the Falcons a few years ago. But it reminded me of some of the early Super Bowls when most of them were routes. The first 2, obviously, with the Packers, the whole game-changing deal with Joe Namath and the Jets. But, the Vikings, they didn't exactly lose close games. Occasionally there would be a good game, but more often than not in those early years of the Super Bowl era, the games weren't very good.
Wasn't there the one that comes to mind, obviously, is the 85 Bears. But wasn't there a game where Dallas just took apart the Broncos. I do remember a game where I think the Broncos scored on a long bomb in the first play of the game. Craig Morton would have
Oh
been the
yeah,
quarterback.
like
And then Dallas rattled off 59 straight points or something to that effect.
yeah, the 1977-ish, something like that. There was a
be.
couple times. Well, the one time, as a matter of fact, it might have been the last Super Bowl played at the Rose Bowl. The Cowboys Bills, the famous Leon Lett, when he thought he was going to score, and was it Don Beebe at the time who knocked the ball out. I know Kuhn and we talked about that last season, the 23 season. You'd love to see a Super Bowl back at the Rose Bowl one of these days. Unlikely, because it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the new stadiums right now. But yeah, even those kind of games, oftentimes there are moments that you remember. I guess for me, just being a Wisconsin guy, the Zach Bond pick, but I don't know what else would be viewed as a moment in that game. The Cooper DeJean pick six was obviously that's one that's going to stand the test of time. But the game itself was just kind of, unless you're an Eagles fan, it was great.
Yeah, any of the 6 sacks, right?
Yeah,
by that Eagles defense, that front four was just pulverizing. It was sight.
Yeah, to get that kind of pressure over and over again with 4. It got me, and again, it's a different game. It just got me to thinking about a couple of the really good Wisconsin defenses that were able to do similar things. And you go back maybe 20 years ago or so, Brett Bielema's first year as a defensive coordinator, there was a really, really good defensive line. They didn't have to blitz a ton. But to see this against Kansas City, to see Patrick Mahomes look ordinary wasn't really his fault. I mean, he was under siege. But it's a tribute to the Eagles. And look, last year, they started 10-1, everything went sideways, and people wonder, and Nick Sirianni barking at the fans, and this, that, and the other. But credit to these guys, and as great, as important as quarterback play is, you still probably better be really good on your offensive line and your defensive line, because if you're not, a lot of those skill guys become irrelevant.
Talking with the voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay here. He's brought to us by Ridgetop Exteriors. Get started at ridgetopexteriors.com. Okay, switching to the Badgers here. 7 games left, 6, 7 games left, if I'm not mistaken. And this time off is perfectly timed for an upset in West Lafayette on Saturday. What does that look like?
Yeah, they've got, Purdue plays at Michigan tonight, so that's a big game. That's coming up in about 20, 25 minutes or so. So Wisconsin's playing really well. It's won 11 of 13 games. The 2 losses, a 2-pointer at UCLA. I think they ended up losing by 8 a couple of weeks ago to Maryland, but it was a very competitive game. We're finding they can win in some different ways. I mean, you score 116 the first time against Iowa. The game Saturday down there was a little more of a slog at times, but when you're still scoring in the mid 70s in a game that's a slog, that's not too bad. And they're able to get to the free throw line. So it's, that you look at these schedules, so much of this now, and we've talked about this before, I think, with the big league now, with the 18-team league, and it's so much, who do you only play once? Down the stretch, there's 7 games left. They've got Purdue, which has been really, really good. Michigan State, really, really good. That game is going to be in East Lansing in a few weeks. And then the other road game is Minnesota. But Illinois comes here next week. Illinois is a team that's gone through some hiccups, but they've had guys sick, hurt. Now they're getting back, and they look to be pretty healthy now. So it's a very challenging stretch run here for Wisconsin, but you have to like where they are right now. They're playing extremely at a very high level, and it's not just John Tonje carrying the team. Yes, he can do that, but John Blackwell, Max Klesman, Stephen Crow, Winter, Kamari McGee, they're getting help from a lot of different sources.
We're going to chat with Patrick Herb tomorrow, and this is probably a question better for him. But what can the university or anybody do to bang pots and pans together to get people to consider Greg Gard as a Coach of the Year candidate? Because you look at the body of work this year, and there's no doubt in my mind he's in the top 3 or 4 or 5 guys in the country.
Yeah, at least in the Big Ten, he's got to be in the conversation here, and that's where probably guys like Patrick do their thing. Part of it is, and it's going to sound like a complaint, but it's more just an observation of having done this as long as I have. I think Wisconsin fights it with the brand. Michigan State has the big brand. When Wisconsin trounced Indiana last week, it wasn't, hey, Wisconsin played well. It's what's wrong with Indiana, and the Brewers face this, at Major League Baseball and Marquette to some extent. I'm sure in basketball, there are the, like Bo Ryan would call them, the free pub universities, and he's not wrong. There are just, we play the hits in sports media, just like anything else, but they were picked 12th. And there's still a long way to go. They're 9-4, but they're in a pretty good position to finish considerably higher than that. That said, I think with what Izzo is doing, certainly Dusty May at Michigan, they have been a major factor in this league in his first year there, really remaking that roster. But Greg has got to be in the conversation. Is he a lock to win it? I don't think I'd go that far, but he should be a lock to be on the very short list.
Yeah, you can't. It has to go to guard. It can't go to Dusty May. Dusty May is not a basketball coach. He's a rodeo clown.
I was going to say, sounds like
with that name,
a designated hitter from the 1970s.
Yeah. Well, then it would be
Davey May.
It would be like Robert Dusty May.
Does he sound like a guy who would bunt a lot too, Drew? Kind of like back in the day.
He would.
He's just going to lay one down
at inappropriate times.
I don't know that I would go to I wouldn't go to a dentist named Dusty May. I mean, it has to be a sports name, right?
This is my doctor. This is my proctologist, Dusty.
Dusty May.
I don't think so.
He'd lay down a bunt to break up a no-hitter when it's 8-0.
There we go.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. So with 7 games left, how many games can and should the Badgers win, do you think?
Oh, man, I wish I was that smart. I'd have been finding casinos with you guys in New Orleans or waiting for the next.
You'd have found Billy there, that's for sure.
Well, the one thing that they have done, and we may have mentioned this last week too. They're a better team than Indiana right now. Indiana has maybe some great talent. They haven't put it together. Wisconsin was able to win that game. They're a better team than Iowa right now, especially without Owen Freeman, a key player for the Hawkeyes who's out for the rest of the year. So they've taken care of their business in those games. So you pick your way through the schedule. Oregon has had a roller coaster ride. They come here. Washington's been a disappointment. The Huskies come here. They go to Minnesota. It's pretty dangerous ground for me to start saying they can win this, they can't win that. I think at their best, to give you the boring answer, they've proven they can play with just about everybody, but they still have to beat those teams. When you look at the top handful of teams in the Big Ten, they lost early in conference play to Michigan. They lost by 2 to UCLA, lost to Maryland. So you need to find a way to knock off a Purdue or a Michigan State, because those are the 2 teams above them that still remain on the schedule.
It starts Saturday with Purdue, West Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
You guys leaving Friday? How long a trip is that? Is that a flight or is it
It's a flight, fairly short one. Although it sounds like we're getting the wave of winter storms here, so we'll see how that goes. We never want to say this is going to be an easy trip, but it's on a good day. The flight's like 45 minutes or so, and that's a great arena. They do have, I will say, they have the best environment in the Big Ten. I used to say Michigan State. I mean, Illinois has been right there. And maybe because Purdue's been really good, Zach Edey, those 2 years, National Player of the Year. But even without him, they're very, very good. And it's just the environment at Mackey Arena. It's a building made for noise. It really holds noise well. But they pack it. They're enthusiastic. It is a very, very tough place to play.
Just make sure to keep Butchie away from the popcorn pregame.
He did it again, man, in Iowa City. He did it again. I did conduct a poll.
Easy, rat boy, stop chewing on that.
Well, we drove down. He came down here, and then the 2 of us drove together to Iowa City, and I put out a poll. Rather than, I'm not doing post-game takes, hey, so-and-so did this. Who cares? I wanted to do a poll. What music should I subject Butchie to on the way back? 70s on 7, 80s on 8, yacht rock, or all of the above. Yacht rock won. All of the above finished runner-up. We eventually punted and went to the highway. Sirius XM, the highway. Yeah. I had him a heavy dose of 80s on 8, and I think I think his ears were bleeding,
Good.
but that's his problem.
Well,
That's
people that
right.
listen to Zabe and Butch in the morning would say you could just have played all of Butchie's suggestion for banger of the day, and then that would make your ears bleed too. That would make his ears bleed because they rip him for his song selection.
You're the
Well,
driver, Matt. You get to pick the tunes.
Right.
That's exactly right. And you're right, Drew. I mean, Butchie has no musical taste. He does like country, so I'm good there. I'm good.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know if he knows what good really sounds like.
I'm not
I really
sure he
don't.
does either.
I see him as being a sloppy eater in the car too.
Well, popcorn courtside.
He's got,
sitting
there's French fries that you're not going to see for
shotgun.
4 years.
Oh yeah,
either
yeah.
way.
He's America's slob.
Let him pay for the detail. But thankfully, the iron jock that he wears is all stain free, and he can get away with it. That's
I
amazing.
think, you know what, Matt? You just coined a new nickname. America's slob.
America's slob.
We love it. The two-fisted Butchie. A fistful of popcorn in one hand and like a burger in the other. There's
There we
Butchie
go,
looking
just-
for more.
Back and forth.
He
Absolutely.
missed being down in New Orleans with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have taken it to the next level, no question. We've got stories to share, which we will do over some Central Standard bourbon, Matt. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thanks, Matt.
Have a great week. Hunker down for the storms and safe travels to West Lafayette.
All right, guys, take care. Talk to you
All
next
right.
week.
That's Matt Lepay joining us.